Welcome to the shop. Today I'm going to make a fish-headed hammer. So it starts with a piece of Damascus, and I'm just turning it on the lathe and then doing some final shaping with a file. And then I'm over at the disc grinder to work on the fins. And then some more file work to help define all those edges, and then kind of blending everything together. Then after that, it is over to the bandsaw. I'm just trying to rough out the back shape of those fins there. Just means there's less material to file away. And once that's done, come in with a triangle file and start shaping everything. So I've gone ahead and put it in a 1, 2, 3 block just to help hold it so I have a reference surface to work off of. And I'm drilling the holes so I can go ahead and thread those. And that's how it's going to attach to the handle later on. Just clean it up with a chamfer bit. Now I don't have a tap wrench big enough for this tap, so I'm just going ahead and use a wrench there. Now I'm marking for what's going to be the eyes. Just center punch that, and then come in with a drill. Just get that started. And then, whoops, using a burr and a Dremel just to deepen it, shape those a little bit more. And I'll file out that scratch later. So now here I need to draw in the fins, and to do the fins I'm actually going to relieve all of the space around it. So I'm starting with a small triangle file. I'm just defining the shoulders for those fins. And now I'm coming back with a burr and the Dremel to relieve all of the space around it. And I find that having those file marks makes it really easy to kind of keep the burr where it needs to be. And then after all that's done, blend the surface out with a file and then kind of put in more of a consistent scratch pattern with a wire wheel. And that's what it looks like up until this point. Now I don't want to be smacking on a hand plane with, steel, so I'm forming a replaceable head, and this is going to be out of oak. I've just gone ahead and drilled, and I'm tapping this as well. And then I'm going to epoxy in a threaded rod, and that's how it's going to attach to the steel head. And then I wanted it a little darker, so I went ahead and dyed it. It took several coats, and now I'm giving it a coat of shellac. I did several coats just to build everything up. Now this is the start of the handle. I'm actually using an imitation ivory here. And it's my first time working with this stuff. It's messy to turn. I'm attempting some freehand turning here. And got a little too aggressive and exploded on me, which was super fun. So luckily I had enough to make another piece. You can kind of see how what this is going to look like. And then this is some, I think 1115. And I just, shape that on the lathe with some files. And then, it gets all screwed together. I'm just adding some thread locker. The imitation ivory is epoxied to the threaded rod, and then I use thread locker on the upper part. So I'm making myself a quick and dirty forge out of some fire brick, and I'm going to go ahead and heat treat the steel, not because it needs it, it's just for the color. This will let me get a deeper color when I go to etch it here in a minute. So after I got hot enough, I quenched it in some peanut oil. Not the best for this type of steel, but again, this is just for appearances. And then it gets tempered, and then I just clean it up again on the wire wheel. And now it's going into the ferric chloride bath, and I did a couple rounds of this, and then Windex to neutralize everything. Then I go ahead and clean that up again. And after it's all clean, it goes into a coffee etch, and I let this sit for overnight, so about 12 hours or so. And then that came out fairly dark, and but it needed a little more work, and I'm just slowly going over it with some 1500 grit sandpaper to knock off the high spots and help polish those up. And that's what it looks like when it's done. So now with that being done, I can go ahead and attach it to the head. Again, more of that thread locker. And the hammer at this point is done. All it needs is a bit of wax to keep everything from rusting and make that head look nice. But I just couldn't finish it there. So I'm going to go ahead and make myself up a stand for this. And that's just some walnut that I had. And this is going to be the upper part that holds everything. So I got it squared on two sides, and now I'm just using the table saw here to clean up those other two sides. And a little bit of cross cutting, and I'm using that piece of plywood as a backer so the back side of that wood doesn't blow out. Now this is actually some walnut sapwood that I had, and I thought it looked pretty cool, so this is going to be the base. And again, I got it, flat and square on those other sides, and just using the table saw to get it down to final dimensions. And now I'm going to start on the joinery, and I'm actually using the bandsaw here to cut the dovetails. I made up a jig, and it's a, let's see, about 1 6. I can use the bandsaw there to form the pins and then clear out most of that waste. If you're clearing out waste with the bandsaw, start with the narrow side up so you don't cut past your lines. And you can see it leaves just a little bit there in the corner that needs to be removed. I'm just popping that out with a coping saw. You could use a chisel, but I didn't want to risk breaking anything. And so this is just standard chisel work at this point. I'm using that 1, 2, 3 block just so I can establish a square shoulder there. I just transfer it like normal. So I'm just trimming out the waist on this one. Same method as before. Just cutting down just a little shy of my line. I want to take the rest off with the chisel. Trying to split that line, stay just outside of the pencil line. I want to leave some of that pencil left. And you can just work that blade in there and kind of take off that excess, and then again back with the chisel. Work down from both sides, meet in the middle, so that way you don't blow out the chisel on the back side. Just light cuts until you get back to your baseline. And then I'm actually undercutting the shoulder there just a hair, but just in the middle. Trying to make sure that all the excess gap or excess waste is out of there. And now I'm marking it for the, need something to help hold that hammer vertically. So I'm just using a Forstner bit to give myself a little recess. You can kind of see how this is going to work now. I just need to trim the top part of that off. And I'm just using a chisel to knock out a bunch of waste, and I'm making a little bit of a groove here. So I got it close with the chisel, and now I'm coming in with some files to round everything over, make it look pretty. Back to the chisels to try to get out. So I ended up with a little bit of a hump in the middle, and then sanding it to make it look nice. And that big square block just didn't look good, so turning this into more of a teardrop shape. And this blade was just a teeny bit wide for the radius on the front here, so I had to do it in a couple passes. Now I'm using the router table to put a deep chamfer all the way around this. And I didn't take it all the way to the end because I didn't want to risk blowing it out, so I just cleaned that up with a block plane later. Now it's time for glue up. And I ended up with a little bit of a gap in the tail. So just cut another little sliver off and just using that to fill in. And now we're up to adding shellac just to make it look pretty. So here is the finished piece. And I actually did this for a tool making contest that's going on right now. If you're watching this in November of 2023, you can see how this works. A couple taps on the back will retract your blade. Put your blade in, tap it down. You can adjust it forward. That's everything. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next one. And before I forget, my store is now live and I have some tools available. Right now I have some Dancing Master calipers. If you happen to be interested, I would appreciate it if you checked it out. Thanks.